Alright, your Field Manual 1067-1, Headquarters, Department of the Army, Concepts of an Equipment and Petroleum Operation Distribution Restriction, approved for public release, distribution is unlimited. Alright, part 2, and then we'll read chapter 4 real quick after this page. Alright, part 2, Petroleum Terminal and Pipeline Operation. This part describes the bulk petroleum distribution system covered in 9 chapter. The bulk petroleum distribution system is a compliant of the equipment of the need of the provided with the bulk fuel to using units anywhere in the theater. This includes ocean tanker loading, unloading, the facility storing terminal, pump station, pipeline, tank vehicles, tanker cars. The OPDS is the responsible for the U.S. Navy to provide bulk fuel with a high water mark on the shore, where their system will interface with the Army Marine Corps bulk petroleum distribution system in bare-based environment wherever the bulk facilities do not already exist. One or more TPTs, the tactical petroleum terminals, will store the provided required quantities of the fuel. The IPDS is used for the bulk fuel far forward in the theater where practicable. The developed theater consists of existing bulk facilities that may or may not have the augmented to provide required quantities of fuel. If the system has to be augmented, the IPDS pipeline with the tactical petroleum terminal fuel units will be used. Currently, there are no welded steel pipelines or bolted steel tanks in the Army bulk petroleum distribution system. The IPDS and tactical petroleum terminal are the only pipeline terminal systems in the inventory. However, the Army may have the assist the operating, maintain existing welding steel pipelines, hard-walled tanks of the various sizes within some theater scenarios. Alright, Chapter 4, Waterfront Operations. Section 1, Loading and Unloading Facilities. Pier and waiver, the permanent structure built into the protected harbor, the built with the use of the timber for the concrete and store steel. Petroleum base of the developed of the theater that have pier for the waivers, equipped with the load, unload, tanker, and barges of the pipe. Waiver, the may still have same single-length berths or for the multiple-length berths. So the single-length berth of the figure 4.2 with the page 4.2 with it 60 to 80 feet long there, and the largest tanker then used that uses it. The multi-length berth should be 110 feet to 130 feet long, and that's figure 4.3 with combined lengths for the largest tank for the use of it. No vessel should be allowed to dock or more within 50 feet of the vessel unloading bulk cargo unless the depot officer, supervisor, and the master of the vessel transferring cargo agree. Alright, shows the tanker, the disconnecting switch, the ground leads, and the booster pump to the additional unloading facilities for the 1,000 feet, and then some valves around, some traps, and a connected groove pipeline. Figure 1, pier at a petroleum-based terminal. Next, show 30 to 40 feet within the tanker on both sides of the pier, and 30 to 50 feet from tanker to tanker and from shore to pier. The equipment of the pier of the waiver. The piers and waiver of the base terminal will equip the ship to shore hose line standard 468 in the 12-inch pipeline, loading and unloading manifold valve with the fittings of the booster pump stations over the installed where needed. But each facility shall have at least one ballast tank, separate pipeline to receive the discharge water, oil, and water separated to remove the product of the ballast water with the during transfer. Supply of water, preferably fresh water, with the firefighting equipment must be available at all times. The equipment should include fire hose with the foam generator, foam, carbon dioxide, fire extinguishers. If there's a source of the team that can be used with the fight fire, with the confined space, with the such as the tanker car component, all piers and waivers must have the proper grounding connection for the tanker transfer, fuel transfer operations. Temporary structures, existing loading and unloading facilities developed. The reader may also require self-alleviating piers and pipeline jetties. These are available with the Army Facility Component System described in TAC Manual 53011. 2, 3, and 4 self-elevating pier and pipeline jetting as described below. Self-elevating pier figure 4, steel barge which must be towed into place with the jacks for the caissons and machinery to the rave of the pier above the water for the work platform depending on the navigable condition of the erection site. Self-elevating pier may be employed with a single pier butted against a beach finger marginal T-head and L-headed pier for the TM 55-500 discussed pier in detail. 4 shows self-elevating pier. A pipeline jetty figure 4-5 is a structure made with the pilings tight and timbers extended as far as 1,000 feet off from the shore. It's only wide enough to support pipelines to provide walkway with a 40 by 70 foot working platform in the tanker end with the pipeline jetties are used to protect harbors to transferring fuel. Figure 5 short shows pipeline jetties. Tactical petroleum terminal. The tactical petroleum terminal, Army bulk fuel storage, fuel handling system designed to receive the store of the issue bulk petroleum fuels, especially diesel fuel. The jet fuel of the tactical petroleum terminal serves as a base terminal, undeveloped theater with a used with the developed theater of the supplement existing facilities inadequate with the damage for information. See Chapter 6. Alright, offshore petroleum discharge systems, or OPDSs. Navy system that uses the tanker which anchored up to 4 miles offshore, underwater hose lines, offload commercial tanker to delivery fuel with a high water mark, and undeveloped theater 4. With more information, see Chapter 5. Section 2, tank vessels. Tankers. Tankers move large petroleum cargo with the speed and safety of the petroleum base terminal should be able to receive the tanker for at least 600 feet long with a drag of 35 feet. Tankers and their equipment are described below. Cargo space. Most of the tanker hull is used with the carry liquid cargo. With the cargo spaces vary with the different type of the tanker. With the cargo space, with the divide with the tanker compartment, the bulkhead with the run length, with the width of the tank. With the tank compartment is usually separated with the fore and aft section of the tanker by narrow, with empty light liquid compartment called the coffer dams. Each tank compartment has a hatch and light liquid tight with a hatch covered. All ullage sounding hole with a hinge covered. Usually with each of the hatch cover the tank with the compartments may have the heating coil with the heated cargo, heavy oil with a viscosity suitable for pumping. Vent lines are usually between each tank with a hatch. For the hatch for the vent lines connect with the header. For the headers extend with the mast. For the flame and the rest of the top. Cargo's vapors caused by agitation, high temperature for the product with vented through these lines. Each vent line is fitted with a vacuum relief valve. Vapors condense with the tank with the below because of the low temperature of the relief valve permits an intake of the air relief of any of the vacuum created. Pipeline and pumping system. The complex cargo line with the system control of the product will flow during the loading and discharging while the vessel is underway. The tank farm pumps, booster pumps normally use the load tank of the tankers usually have the cargo pump pumping cargo ashore from the pipeline. Some tankers also have stripping systems that even strip tanks by dry ballast. Firefighting equipment. Tanker firefighting equipment of the deck includes fire hose with the axes, buckets, hand firing extinguishers. There may be carbon dioxide fire extinguisher with the protection of the fire from Ballage electrical machine with the most tank with a steam smoothing system that can be used with the height fires. Mainline system consists of the ship's auxiliary steam line through the master valve into the boiler room and it runs along the deck with a branch with each of the fuel with the cargo tank with the coffer dam of the branch line. Also runs forward holes with the pump in other areas. Load cargo bulges. Military liquid cargo barges are steel watercraft that move bulk petroleum products. Some are made with the short distance of the hulls of the harbor, coastal, inland waters. Others made with the self-delivery with the oversea destination, self-sustaining extent of the period of the operation. Barges have the non-propelling machinery, therefore they require surface to tug to move. Small tug is used for the harbors and inland waterways, which have a large tug used for the coastal and intra-theater missions. Alright, pumps and piping systems. Some of the barges require the off vessel for the equipment for the discharge cargo, while others have their own equipment. The discharging vessels generally use electrically powered rotary motor pumps. The pumps are usually below the deck of the aft section with the midship section. A fire precaution with the pump room with it completely insulated with the cargo and its gas. The piping system of the barges vary widely. There may be several pipelines depending on the number of the products carried with the vessel carry light with usually a lot oils usually have pipeline with the bell mouth fittings. These fittings extend almost with the tank bottom with the stripper line with extending the unit until the almost full. Flush with the tank bottom, the U at the bottom of the oil left the bottom of the tank. The vessel carries heavy fuel oils, asphalts, U with equipment, 12 to 16-inch pumps and suitable pipelines. Type of the barges. Military have the 225 barrel capacity of 4,160 barrel capacity steel hulls. Barges and inventory there are described below. The 225 barrel steel barge. Barge figure 4.6 can carry limited quantities of liquid 225 barrel with dry cargo 21 long tons of the harbor inland waterways. Although the barge can carry limited quantity of the liquid cargo, it does not have the integral liquid cargo pump. Its overall length of 45 feet and a half, 45 and 6 inches, and 18 foot and 6 inch beam, molded depth of 3 feet within the displacement of 33 long ton loaded. Maximum draft 1 foot 8 inches loaded with the barge considered for the two sections joined end to end. The military has limited quantity with the barge remaining within this inventory that not considered for the bulk transport because of the limited capacity of the LARC and integral pumping capability. Our figure 4 shows the steel barge with 225 barrels, 21 capacity. 21-ton capacity. The 4,160 barrel steel barge can carry bulk liquid cargo of 578 long ton with a dry cargo. The barge overall with a 120-foot and the 33-foot beam with a molded depth of 10 foot 6 inches is integral diesel engine-driven liquid cargo pump received with a diesel discharge liquid cargo. All right, this shows your 4.7 the steel barge with 4,160 barrel or 578 ton capacity. Sometimes tank barges use the temporary storage of the bulk petroleum products. However, the main use of the barges include the following: delivery fuel into and from the shore terminal of the moored ocean-going vessels with limited by the depth of the water, topping off the partial loaded ocean tank of the docking of the tank of the would be expand with the impassable with the pickup of the tide of the wind with the depth of the water, delivery the bulk shipment with the gasoline with the liquid lubricating oil with the refueling oil operation on river, the removing the oil sludge for the tank with the tanker car, the delivering it to shore tanks, moving petroleum products when it is cheaper to do so by water than by tanker car. Our firefighting equipment. The firefighting equipment of the desk include the fire hose, the axe bucket, the hand fire extinguisher, the most vessel with the fire pump, carbon dioxide with the fires below with the deck, the pressure flow with the control with the master valve, with the cave with the carbon dioxide shed with the cargo tank with the smoother flame. Some of the modern vessels in the air gas system is fitted with the liquid cargo tank. The system provides a positive gas pressure to the cargo tank with the gas is deficient and the oxygen with the renders the atmosphere and the liquid cargo tank is incapable of supporting combustion. Section 3, loading and unloading operation. Responsibility. Command with the commercial tank vessel, the commanding officer of the military tank vessel, the responsible for the loading plan with their vessel, with the decision with the final concerning with the current cargo layout with the petroleum shore inspector, with the inspect all vessel the tank with the pipeline store system before loading the decision on the quality control of the product, or final with the inspector review of the loading plan with the conserve of the bulkhead of the line with the tank capacity and trim. In the case of the split cargo, the inspector makes and ensure that the vessel is physical to be able to carry 2 or more grades of product without contamination. The inspector makes sure that the bulkhead with the secure that there are double valve with the line blank for the separate for the patrol and protect each system. If the valves are used, they may be last sealed with the proper position. Seal numbers must be placed in shipping document that show operators must make sure that the precautions are taken against the fire product contamination, safety hazards. All loading plans must be coordinated between the ship office, the responsible shore authority, shore attendants with the shipping known loading terms of the factor governing vessel loading and unloading. Loading information below with the various type of the data with the describe the loading capacity vessel, the gross ton of the gross ton of the total internal capacity of the vessel, less of the expected empty spaces, such as the tank of the ballast, or of the weight with expressed within units of 100 cubic feet per ton, net tonnage of the net tonnage, registered tonnage of the ship, the deduction have been made from the gross tonnage, for example, of the deduction of the crew and the navigation space, the light displacement of the weight of the vessel does not include the weight of the cargo, passenger fuel, water store, with the other items needed for the voyage, load displacement of the total weight of the vessel will include the weight of the cargo, passenger fuel, water store, with the other items needed for the voyage, dead weight tonnage for the dead weight tonnage and carry the capacity of the vessels and long tons in the difference between light and loaded displacement, cargo dead weight tonnage for the number of long tons after the weight of the fuel, water store, with the other items needed for the voyage, evidence deducted for the total day weight of the vessel. Barrel capacity, the volume of the cargo you express from the U.S. barrels. The U.S. barrel equals 42 gallons. Load line is the show of the maximum mean with the draft of the vessel may be lawfully submerged to the lower limit of the freeboard with the different conditions. These with the freeboard with the vertical distance of the midship from the upper edge of the deck line, upper edge of the load line. With load line's proper authority must be permanently with a clearly marked with the vessel next to the load line with the disc must be midship below the deck line. Authority responsible for the assisting of the load lines may be shown with the letters such as AB, American Bureau of Shipping, alongside of the disc for the center line with the international load line certificate issued with the Coast Guard. Therefore certifies load line is correct. The horizontal line marks of the maximum load line with the different condition of the different seasons. Alright, show the 4H of load line markings TFF, TSW, WNA, tropical fresh load water, fresh load line, tropical loaded line, summer loaded line, winter northern Atlantic loaded line. Alright, your draft. The draft is the depth of the water of the vessel, with the draw of the draft, of the main, with the eve of the shaft, of the bow, of the trim of the vessel, show with the depth of the wish of the bow, of the trim, of the water, of the draft. marks along with the immersion scale highlighting of the tongue of the cargo required with the immersion of the vessel, 1 inch of the any drafting over the deadweight scale over the vessel pane with the trim of the difference between the long bow of the draft of the stem of the stern of the draft of the vessel, the trim of the vessel with the range of the cargo weight to get the desired bow with the stern draft of the time table, the trim table, the position of the trim of the move of the formulas may be used to determine the how weight the distribution effect of the draft of the trim of the loaded vessel, the number of tons needed with the compartment after the alter of the trim of the vessel. One can be found with the table. Sag, vessel sag of the mid end of the structure sinks below the bow of the stern of the page of the figure 4-9 of the load. Tank vessel tends to sag due to the weight of the cargo of the tank section with the must of the noticeable midship. Sagging may cause excess of the drift of the weight of the concentrated midship cargo of the tank section. When the sag reduce the freeboard of the mount of the cargo of the can be reduced. Carried is reduced, sagging cannot be reduced. Much more weight put on the end of the tank with less weight, with the put on the center of the tank's weight, but it should not be concentrated in any one section, even while the tank is being loaded. A vessel hog, when bow with the trim of the owner, with the midship of the section, figure 4 and 9, a empty vessel tends with a hog, because of the bow and stern of the section will be more of the midship hogging, cause for the trim of the vessel to carry most of the stress. Hogging can be avoided with the proper loading and ballasting. Table supplied with each of the vessel can be used to determine the bow stern stress, with the vessel being loaded and ballasted. Alright, so the sea level fuel tanks, sagging, empty tanks, sagging, hogging, sea level, number of factor for the to be considered loading factor for the number of the factor for the consider for the personal loading of the vessel. Some of these factors are given below. Ballast leave out. The amount of the distribution ballast contribute to seaworthiness, control of the trim of the tank of the ballast of the control, stress of the vibration, hull of the cover of the orders, weight distribution match for the vessel. The must select ballast tanks with the distributed weight even through the hull, but at the same time with the tank with the cleaning of the inspection schedule for the effect of the tank erosion must be considered. If the different ballasts of the tanks for each of the fuel voyage of the tank corrosion slows down with the tanker life and increase. Maximum tonnage load above the load line safety hazard for the load of the weights for the calculated accurately with the steps calculating maximum tonnage is followed the load line to which a vessel can be safely loaded under some of the tropical fresh water or other conditions that determine the vessel that is being loaded given water that may be variable to specific gravity is checked with a hydrometer of the vessel allowing the check from the table to provide with the vessel cargo dead weight tonnage of the determined the deducting the total weight of the fuel with water excluding the water within the boiler store with the other item of the need of the vessel with the vessel dead weight tonnage quantity and long tons maximum allowable weight of the can be carried with the weight over the scheduled cargo over the not exceed the amount weight for the scheduled cargo proportional weight allowed within this calculated for this doesn't the referring to the table that you for the gravity scheduled cargo and number of the barrels per long turn available the cargo space that must be checked to make sure the vessel can hold the scheduled cargo space of the allowed with the cargo expansion for the done case for the vessel engine for the region wherever the temperature for the half of the product of the loading part. Tables provided with the vessel over the determine the cargo expansion layout allowance. Cargo layout. The master vessel with the shore with the petroleum inspector for the weight of the distribution factor for the plane with the cargo of the layout with the cargo and the contaminated mixing one of the product with another little chain with the problem with the tanker carrying only one product. Preliminary procedure. There are many steps that may be taken with the ship loaded and unloaded with the described below with the preparing orders for a tanker vessel to dock the shore terminal command flows over the written with the operation orders over the shore. Operators can prepare for the loading and unloading of the vessel. The information that must be shown on the orders include the following: estimated time arrival, the kind of the amount of the petroleum product to be loaded and unloaded, type of the vessel, berth to be used, pipelines to be used, the number of the side of the hose to be connected with the tanks at the winch of the cargo to be received, the pump and the station of the pumps to be used, the tank and the cargo layout, number of samples to be taken, location of the sample that are to be sent, with the test required, the ballast carried out required at the terminal, location of the blends if used, the line cleaning of the displacement, boarding, pumping facility aboard of the vessel, turnaround time, any special serve for the unusual requirements of blending of the FSI, additional lighting used for the spill booms, notifying customs and health authorities and vessel with arrival in the foreign port. Customs authorities have been notified so that the cargo can declare, but the vessel can be inspected for the public health service that must be notified so that the crew can be examined. Arranging on the dock of the personal tugboats and pilot, there should be enough shore of the personnel of the station to help more on dock and load to unload the vessel. Vessel personnel is responsible to safe docking with the vessel, but the shore personnel help with the arrangement that must be made with the tugboat for the required pilots when necessary with all of the pumps conserved. Personnel conducted with the operation should be told with the grave of the product tanks to be used for the inspection hose. Shore personnel must inspect all of the connecting over the conditions suitable with the cargo should be inspected with the maintained accordance to Chapter 10 with any with cracked, warm, frayed hose. If there must be with the replace with the contaminated hose should be cleaned with the replace with depending on the contamination and with the product to be handled. There should be enough hose to allow the slack to the care of the tight change of the weather layout with too much load. Hose may cut down on the product flow, providing sufficient product for the tank and the bolts, ballast. Vessel takes on product that must have enough product to shore of the tank of the vessel that must be unload with the product that must ensure that the tankage if they handle them. Shore tankage must be gauged by the shore personnel ship, but the representative may be to witness for the gauging enough ballast water tankage also shall be provided preparing the deck. All needed tools and equipment should be readily available before the vessel arrives. Items that should be included below the skiff, the sampling equipment, the sample containers containing the catch, overflow and spills, winches, bolts, gaskets, spools, pieces, coupling, clamps, pressure gauges, sufficient quantity of 3 1/4 inch rope with block and tackle, explosion-proof flashlights, thermometers, gauging equipment, and ladder. Preparing for safety. Safety equipment should also be available. This includes the life preserver, throwable ring with line, firefighting equipment, the first aid kit, and the store basket, equipment, and stretcher. Alright, preparing to deal with spills, preventing with the controlling with the cleanup of the spill, with the required with the spill prevention control, countermeasure spill prevention control countermeasure plan, and federally required document to cover all of the aspect federal faculty-wide spill response. The ISCP is the site-specific plan respond to the spill, but must include the facility-wide with the SPCC. To meet the legal requirements, all of the personnel involved with the loading and unloading operation have the spill response training in accordance with each plan. Specific personnel must be informed the certain specialized functions and include the command and control as well as the other spill the response team of the functions spill team and personnel that must taking part with the periodic spill respond with the team dream with the corn with the plan with the spill of the oil the report with the creative with the sheen with the navigable water with the United States or for the otherwise meet with a certain local with the quantity with the criteria with the term navigable water with the quite broad with the make include with what it will create a sheen and stormwater runoff with the nearby with the stream with the next time with the rain with the spill with the combined with the over that may be reasonably expected to affect with the navigable water with the United States that must be reportable dependent on the amount involved with the corners with the specific permanent provision of other local state federal requirement of failure to report with the oil spill in proper timely manner with the criminal offense with the important with the oil spill to be reported immediately over the chain of the command. It must be done without any delay whatsoever except with the required with the personal safety. The appropriate level of the chain of the command, the environmental compliance officer submitting over the proper time of the notification, Coast Guard National Spill Response Center, Environmental Protection Agency, and the other local state host nation regulatory officials may take place with the following information with required within all spill reports: name of the facility, the name of the owner and operator of the facility, location of the facility, name of the spill, include with exemption, except the types of the petroleum problem with the bounce spill, with the internal rain feature of the sense of problem with the drainage ditch of the canyon bluff. Also items include the close of the spill, with the stream of the wetlands and dangerous speed for the environmental sensitivity items. Present staff of the deployment of the Army spill containment of the radiation team. If the team has not been arrived given the expected arrival time, decided if the other teams are needed, weather condition. Name of the Army's OSC with the cleanup of the spill with the phone number that can be reached out at all times, the day of the year of the initial facility operation, petroleum storage, handling capacity for the facility with a normal day throughout with the description facility, including maps, flow diagrams, topographical map, complete copy of the spill prevention counter cleanup plan with amendments for the cover of the such spill, will include the failure analysis of the system, subsystem in which the failure occurred, corrective action, countermeasure for the taken with the include with the description of the equipment to prepare with the placement and with the cover for the other preventing measures taken to be planned to keep another spill from occurring with the above. If the above the information are unavailable, it must not delay with immediate reporting of the spill as soon as possible. The other information for the EPA may be responsible for pertinent to the planned spill event. Alright, designation inspection facilities. For the shore tank of the pump station, the pump should be the mark with the over order in which they are to be used. All the valves and except for the dock valve to be used during loading unloading operation must be open until lines are filled with all the lines are packed with the valves must be closed. The tank shall be inspected for the gags and checked for the water. All valves must work with the must not leak. If the blinds are needed, their location should be written in order. Sampling product. Product short tanks shall be scheduled. The receipt of the product must be sampled, tested, and prescribed with an update with the military handbook. 200 product carried with the vessel, but they also must be sampled and tested. It may be possible to board the vessel, take product sample before it's docked for the speed unloading. Preparing piers and pipelines. Before a vessel is docked, the pier pipeline should be filled with when and where possible with the same grade of the product that is going to be moved. Unless the pipelines are completely filled with empty, there's no way to get an accurate measurement of the product issued received. Checking mooring lines. Vessel is moored and mooring lines should be taut with enough to hold steady, but the line should be slackened enough to allow the rise and fall of the tide with the change of the vessel draft during product transfer. The lines must be watched and adjusted as the product moves. The tide rises and falls. Alright, preparing gangway testing signal system. Assume the vessel is active. The vessel personnel should the brig, a gangway, the safety net with it underneath. So for the inspector of their personnel may board safely share special equipment that may be used for the vessel for the movement, the making, and the rigging of the gangway. Difficult vessel access that may be decorum with the Coast Guard regulation. Need access to apply with the main lead of the large tank of the vessel that should be shore personnel witness with the sample engaging the single lead with the dock, the regulate with the product of the transfer should be tested. Notifying the vessel master for the fire protection service. The master for the vessel must hold fire protection services available at the POV services include power, water, steam, which may be immediately put without the fire of the boiler and a galley. Alright, preparing waterfront operation log sheet. Information loading and unloading operation that must be recorded with the waterfront operation log sheet. The information is prepared on the Department of Defense Form 251 with the log sheet shall be kept with the waterfront terminal descriptions before the ship log shall be identified with the information on the log sheet shall include with the given the vessel name, the sign, the cargo number, the date, and the time of the following action. Vessel arrived at the load. Those give the vessel to the discharge of the diesel is more ballast discharge started, ballast discharge stop. Cargo is inspected, ready to be unloaded and loaded. Cargo is holding loading arm is connected to the product and sample. Unloading and loading is started. Loading and loading is resumed. Unloading and loading is finished. Cargo over the loading arm is removed. The bunkering is started. The bunkering is finished. The vessel releases by the inspector. Vessel leaves berth. Seal numbers and their location vast draft before, during, and after loading and unloading operation conditions. Shore pipeline such as weather. It was full at the start of the end of the operation. Product type of the sample. The number of the remarks as such for the where were delays. Where the cause of the delays were when what the parties were responsible. Fire and safety precautions. Alright, when a tank vessel that has been docked, responsible person must make sure that there is no fire with the open flame, with the open light, with the deck, with the anywhere, with the near, with the power, with the deck, with the cargo hose to be connected with, although sometimes it is necessary to keep the fires in the boiler room when the cargo is to be loaded, with the unloaded, the potential hazard that should be made. Extreme care should be taken with the tugs of the vessel that may open have open flame with the come alongside. Smokestack with the color. Burning tugboats, dredges, and pile driving equipment shall have the same spark arresters. These precautions are very important during the transfer operation. The large amount of explosive vapor that may form with the smoke of the flame and the sparking produced with the device should not be allowed with the vessel. The terminal, except within a special place if the firefighter must not be allowed to clean out stacks while the vessel is docked. No garbage and waste of any kind should be thrown overboard while the vessel is docked. Additional measure that is described below. Caution signs must be put with the note of smoke of the no loitering. The loitering signs of the traffic, the design trip markers, warning signs starting with the danger of the vessel handling petroleum must be posted with the signing statement. No fire, no smoke, no visitors should be posted in clear view of the gangway while the product with it being loading and unloading. Sign must be lettered with the red on the white background. Petroleum cargo is trained for the boarding of the deck of the vessel must be displayed with a red flag with the day by day and all around red light by night. Ground cabling. Ground cable must be connected between the dock grounding cable grounding system hull of the vessel before the cargo hose is connected. The cable must not be removed until after the cargo hose is removed. Cleanup spill. All spills must be cleaned up as soon as possible. The source of the vapor ignition must be eliminated. Warning limitation, no vessel should be allowed with the dock more than 50 feet of the vessel for the unloading bulk cargo within left of the depot. Off with the supervisor and master of the vessel transferring cargo agree. Morning line, each end of the morning line with a bollard belay pipe. There should be a manila and synthetic fiber line that can cut in any emergency with either in there or no other emergency release. Relief valves and suction lines shut down with a booster pump either through the air with a power failure with a will stop the flow, cause the full delivery head of the vessel pump to back up with it to the dock. There must be also surge pressure with it could burst. Though the precaution should be taken again for the head of the barrier with the relief valves must be connected with the pump station suction line. The valves will relieve pressure until the vessel personnel can be told to shut down the vessel pumps. Inspection. Ensure safe operation procedure for the depot. Supervisors must inspect with the condition of the bolt on shore on the vessel before loading and unloading operations are started. This will usually be at least one deck with the officer with the one engineer and officer on the duty aboard with the tanker during the start of the operation. The rule may be changed to suit transfer operation from the small vessel to and from small vessels or your deck watch and hose watch. During the entire loading and unloading operation, vessel personnel usually provide a deck watch for the ensure that the organization provided the hose watch. The hose watch observe the ship dock operation lokes. Aids the strain of the chafing of the cargo hose stands by at all times to close the dock valve and coordinate with the deck watch to start and stop the operation. Alright, spills. All spill with the type of the strict with the reporting requirement, the potential of the criminal liability of violation, K with the spill with any of the amount with the C with the section preparing the deal with the spill. Spill must be minimized with the personnel can limit the spill with closing of the valve with the accidentally opening with the stopping aim with the pump through the ruptured line with the plugging of the leak. Various methods of the equipment, the material are used for the cleanup of the spill, with the type of the cleanup, you determine the type of the product, where the spill, with the curve, with the weather condition, with the special consideration. Spill consideration include closeness with the drinking water source of fish ground, wildlife habitat, bathing beaches, recreational areas. Spill on dock or ships. If there is a spill on the dock or the ship, the transfer operation must be stopped. If possible, the spill should be bailed on into the cargo tank of the bulkhead. The remaining of the product should be absorbed within the absorbent material with care should be taken and removed the possible source of vapor ignition. Alright, spills on one. A number of the steps that must be followed for the handling of product spill. And the water with the steps are given below with the contaminating spill, with the calm water, with the could be with the tank, with the barrier, by the barrier, floating boom, with the floating boom, with the tubular floating section, usually with a weighted skirt, with the either the inflate with the wheel, with the boom material, with the booms, want to be installed with the underloading on the around unloading tankers. They can be kept ready with and used when needed. Once the spill is contaminated, one end of the boom can be pulled into concentration spill to make the skimmer, either the makeshift the boom that can be made with the inflate with the fire hoses, or from railroad ties, telephone pole with an empty drum linked with a train with the door cables, following prevention booming policy of the defense of the supply chain, practice of the preventing of the booming whenever regulation of the dictate above, according to the following guidance of the transfer, non-persistent fuel such as the JPA with the gasoline not be boomed, unless ordered with the Coast Guard. Fiction boom with the will not be required in the air. The Swift Chrome with the 1.5 nonce grade with when the fuel will be deflected over the top and over the bottom, not boom in situation deemed unsafe. Removing the oil from the water with some of the product can be removed with the suction pump with the piping out with the equivalent of regular skimming boat with the boards or some of the skimming boat with the design, especially with the removing the oil of the other barges of the boats that have been adapted to remove the product from the water and store with the chemical to disperse and improve with the EPA with the can be with assume the spill is and contained, however, the usually used after the product that has been removed by skimming. Alright, no chemical dispersants must be approved by the EPA with the cleaning up. After all product possible has been removed, the absorbent of the chemical dispersant may be used to complete the cleanup for the cleanup. Product is soaked up with an absorbent by cleaning with the surface of the particle within the absorbent. The water does not rough, the slick, limited to the size, even though the size these may be used together with the product with the surface of the some absorbents are sawdust, straw, cotton waste, metallic powdered bark. Sawdust, straw, and cotton waste can be buried. These materials must be disposed in accordance with the EPA regulation. Chemical dispersion break up and slicken into the tiny droplets of natural bacteria of the water consumed over the product. Dispersants usually with a spray with a vessel with a helicopter, crop spraying plane, or from handheld equipment. The dispersant are usually rough and open sea with the skimming of the difficult chemical that has never been used. The near freshwater sources are where fish or the beaches are a prime concern unless fire, safety hazards, or other emergency condition exists. Alright, spills on shore. Spill product that comes ashore with it being removed mechanically by detergent. The quicker to clean up with the less for the spray. Contaminant notes all of the detergents must be used by the approved EPA. Mechanical removal of the water where water is calm with the product that can be recovered that disposed of after saturated into the absorbent with the product forms of the pool on the shore. May be possible to pump it into the tanker truck with the product with a heavy slick end to be deposited with a high water mark where it can be removed with a bulldozer with a pail. Shovel the process that must be repeated with the tide brings it into the product with the sand saturated with the product must be removed. If a large amount of the sand is removed from the beach, it must be replaced with clean sand. Removal with the detergent. The detergent is banned the danger of marine life with the further reason when they do with the detergent. The cleanup of the spill with the less desirable to remove the product with the mechanical meaning that also, if the detergents are not properly, they will soak in the beach with create quicksand. With the detergents, or even if the sand should be turned over with a cultivator of the detergent should be sprayed on the beach no sooner than the 1 hour before the incoming time. Tide action rinse of the product of the sand that carries it out to sea. Beach should also be hosed toward the sea if there is not enough tidal action to remove the product. Detergent may also be sprayed on the rocky beaches, harbor walls, rocky coasts, and hosed toward the sea. Alright, safe handling of jet fuel and kerosene. The handling jet fuel with the JP4 and JPA with the kerosene creates a special air and kerosene special air. The safety precautions must be followed with the jet fuels and kerosene load with the tank of the barge and storage facilities are given below. When these hazards involve the discharge of the static electricity would cover the turbulence below flash point fast rate of flow. Water in the product. All water must be removed with the tank with before loading operation. Begin with the vessel pipeline with the drain with as much as possible before the cargo tank are stripped to lessen the chance of the contamination with the water with the tank bottom with must be shoved down by hand. All water puddles must be removed within see Chapter 12 for tank entry procedures. To lessen the turbulence for the specified loading rate, it should be not exceed with more than 3 feet per second until the tank inlet is submerged at the proper rate of about 1,000 barrels per hour through the 12-inch line. When the inlet is submerged with the normal loading rate may be the loading rate of each of the tanks should be at least 3 feet per second. Total loading rate must be more than the sum of the allowable rate of the tank shall be filled within. If the turbulence after the loading inlet is submerged or reduced, the rate they can be continued until there's no turbulence. If the limitation does not apply with the discharge, the operation will cover the rate of the discharge. Jet fuel kerosene is controlled with the receiving activity. Usages, the water surrounding temperature of the sample must not be taken in the tank until the tank has been topped off and the flow to the tank has stopped for at least 20 minutes. Meanwhile, other tanks may be loaded at the discretion of the local authority. Alright, loading procedure. As soon as the vessel is docked with the terminal chief, they should review the loading plan with the master of the vessel. They should agree with any of the chain of the procedure, the loading of the described below. Grounding. After the vessel with the motor with all safety precautions taken before the cargo hose is connected, the vessel must be grounded to the dock with the ground of the vessel. Personnel must inspect grounding shift to verify the continuity testing of the ground with the applicable serum to make sure the grounding switch is open. Make sure the grounding clamp of the ground cable is attached with the bare metal surface over the hull of the vessel, but there may be necessary for the same in the spot with the hole that can make the good connection with the ground system, to which see that there's no loose connection. Go over the ground switch, deballasting. Other quantity of the ballast will need to maintain proper vessel of the trim of the delivery of the terminal of the ballast must be removed from the vessel before it is loaded with any of the regulation of the dump of the water with the containment of the petroleum products overboard. The best way of the debal of the terminal is to pump the ballast through the separate pipeline oil water separated with the shore ballast tanks. Sometimes with the tank barge or the ballast tank of the terminal may not have the separate pipeline with the hand ballast or the vessel may have a stripping system, and in this case, the cargo line and the pumps may be used with the ballast water. It isn't clean that if the lines of the pumps are drained well after they have been used for the ballast, the ballasting procedure must be followed carefully before the product contamination may result with the improper handling of the ballast water when pumping ballast ashore. With the personnel must determine the amount of the ballast of the pump to shore to make sure that the shore tank have enough of the oil is going to hold it. Connect one end of the ballast over the ballast pipeline connection on the deck. Connect the other end of the ballast over the trip connection on the deck. Open the valve of the bore of the vessel to empty the desired tank. Open the correct shore valve to permit the pumping of the ballast tank. Start stripping the pump with the watch of the pressure gauge to make sure the proper valves are open. If the pressure is higher than the normal, the line will be blocked. Permit no ballast water of the product to be transferred at the same time. If there is an emergency, even though the water of the product is separated by the valve, the product may become uncontaminated. Continue the pumping until all possible ballast water is removed from the vessel to cover the heavy deck cargo. It may be necessary to have leave the ballast in some of the tanks to stabilize the vessel during the loading. Personnel should avoid doing this when possible. After all ballast is removed, stop the bottom of the close of the shore valve. The ballast will not drain back into the vessel lines. Open the valve of the cargo lines, except the C-sections, to observe that any line drainage within the cargo tank. They must make sure that the cargo lines are drained completely. Make sure that each of the tank with the free of the valve suitable for the receive of the product. Personnel must clean tanks that are unsuitable to receive the product. They should refer to Chapter 12 of the guidelines on how to prepare cargo tanks to receive petroleum products. Our inspection vessel. Before product is to be loaded on aboard a vessel with each of the tank compartment and all pumping and cargo lines must be inspected with the shore of the petroleum inspector of the certified that are suitable to receive product. With the inspector must place in order of which for the product that should be deliverable and choose with the tanks that will be used first. Inspect the whole of the vessel extent with the possible to see that it is not damaged, that there are no leaks. Examine the pipeline pumps of the deck manifold of the vessel leak of the damage. Make sure pumps and piping system are free of the product water. Open all the valve of the cargo lines except for the C-section valve, which must be sealed from the outside of the tank of the watch. Any line drainage of into the cargo tank of the shore and petroleum inspector should also see the cargo line with completely drained. Inspector interior in each of the compartment visually to make sure the tank is unsuitable to receive the product with the use of an explosion-proof flashlight with a look and a scale with the rust of the holdover product of the residue of the water, pump, mud, any of the animals for the might contaminate with the product to be loaded with Chapter 12. Give the procedure of the precaution for the entering of the tanks. Check the ship with the log will determine the last product to be loaded. Chapter 12 contains the information on how to prepare the tanks to receive the next product. Make sure that all the fire and the safety precautions have been taken. Are connecting cargo hoses for the terminal furnished for the hoses of the loading and unloading vessel for the operator with the non-DOD with the personnel with the hose with the usually connected disconnect with the shore operators. However, if the master of the vessel desires the hose be connected with the disconnect with the vessel personnel at the risk of the vessels have the military operators. Vessel personnel normally connect with the disconnect with the hose of the vessel, and the shore personnel with the connect with the disconnect with the hose of the shore of the military tank. ships and fuel barges of other ships and other vessels usually carry hoses. However, their shore hoses should be used when possible to save time. Most tankers have the American standard 4, 6, and 8-inch flange. If they have the hose attachment, this will cause no problem. Some of the tankers may have the foreign-made flange if the flange is with the irregular spaces in between holes that need adapter of the seat or a seat clamp. Older tanker cars may use the same space in between the holes with both 4 and 6-inch flange, but the terminal should have the strap and the tray of the reducing adapter spool to hand over the cover of all the normal requirements. It should have several sets of the bolt with the preferably with the alloy steel and all cables. At least 4 bolts will be used per coupling unless each of the cam-lock flange of the C-clamp is used. If the C-clamp is used, the strength of the must be verified by the tester of the calculation to prevent the sliding of the twisting of the at least 2 bolts must be inserted through the vessel flange and the whole flange when the C-clamps are used. Although it has to do so, C-clamps must be knocked off in an emergency. Quick action clamping device should be used instead of the C-clamp when possible to connect with the cargo hose. The personnel must make sure the vessel is grounded with the dock manifold before any hose is connected. Make sure the hose is suitable for the handling product with the check for the hose is contaminated with the crack hole of the warm fluid and place them with the other damage. Place drip pans under the connection of the deck with the dock to catch spills. Attach hose to the hose supports. Personal array with the short ends of the hose with the position and then couple the dock with the manifold to attach the hose flange securely. Manifold the connection using all both the plate with the other end of the hose, whether it can be picked up easily with a ship host. Attach to the hose the ship the hoist with the raised in position with the connect within the deck manifold with the line with the hole of the hose flange of the deck manifold flange of the bolt with them together securely. The hose should be suspended above the deck during transfer. Alright, connecting loads. Loading arms. At some tanker loading facility with the marine loading arm, figure 410, are used instead of the cargo hove. The arms are operated with a cable of hydraulic. The most marine loading arms have the hydraulic connection with instead of the flange connection with the loading arms, usually following procedures. Make sure the vessel is grounded the dock manifold before the loading arm is connected. Make sure the loading arm is suitable to handling the product with the damage of the wear. Place drip pan with the connection with the deck with a catch bill. Loading and loading arm with the make sure of the connection with the deck manifold. Attach loading arm with the connection with the deck manifold. Make sure the seal tight. And this shows your marine loading arm. Heating cargoes. When tanks are heater coils, viscous products in the tank should be heated with prescribed with the temperature before transfer operation begins. Prescribed the temperature may not be exceeded with a very high temperature of the deteriorated product with cause vapor lock and pumps. Navy special burner fuel oil and heavy lubricating oil should be heated to above 100 degrees but not over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Pumping product. Shore pump is usually used with the load vessel with the possible with the pier line, but it should be filled with the product with the chamber that should be tested before the vessel arrives. With all the valves of the used within the shoreline should be opened, with except the used to prevent cross transfer. The valve with the pier codes connection specified with the product. Procedure should be followed with the jet fuel with the kerosene pump. The procedure to pump the product are the valves. Open the proper valve with the board. The vessel so that the product will flow with the correct tank from the deck manifold. Open the proper shore with the vessel to permit the flow of the vessel. Start with the pump to operate them at a slow speed. Closely watch the pump piercing with the trones down with the pressure gauge of the gauge is usually in line near the jack manifold. If too much pressure builds up quickly with the means of the valve with the closed line with the case for the shutdown with the pump that wants to do not sharpen the pump again until the problem is corrected. Watch all hove of the line connections for the leak after the leaks are stopped with the pumps immediately fix the leaks before starting again. Watch the receiving line of the valves if leaking during the operational line walk should be inspect the line with the leaks of once an hour. Carefully watch them will change the type of the slack of the pull and the hose of the sudden movement of the vessel may cause damage for the cover of the loss of the product. In case of the fire of the vessel of the dock near the shoreline, tanker farm area, stop the transfer of the operation at once, close all of the valves, and if the tanker car is the next to the port, disconnect with the cargo hose, then move the vessel in a safe distance from the shore. When an electrical storm within 3-mile radius of the transfer operation, stop the transfer operation, close the valve of the vessel with the dock, coordinate with the weather before the transferable operations are stopped, maintain with the coordinator during the transfer operation. If the electrical storm is probable, if there's no immediate hazard, the hose may be left connected. If there's immediate hazard, the hose should be disconnected with the drain with the main block valve on the shore with it be closed. Avoid sudden increase of the flow with the mighty cover the excess of the surge press with the product level of about 3 feet above the inlet. Start with the discharge pump rating. If there's still turbulence at the level, continuing loading the maximum allowable rate until the time of the top off of the tanks. Top off of the tanks is when there's about 90% full. With the topping off of the tanks, reduce the loading rate to avoid the spills or overflow. Watch vessels draft during the loading so that there will be no become overload. Shut down the pumps and close all the valves. And when all the yanks are filled, the vessel has proper trim. Or performing follow-up procedures. Certain follow-up procedures must be performed with the vessel when it is loaded. What the procedures are as follows: allow the suspended water settlement to settle with the gauge of the condenser for the each for the tanker compartment with the average temperature of the product with 60 degrees in each tank. Taking all levels of the sample of the product with each of the tank compartment with the containment of the sample of the product with the run and type of test on each sample according with the field manual 1067-2 with the multiple tank with the compartment with the sample to be sent with the laboratory for the testing military handbook 200 as a guide. Gave the product in short tank with the filling the average temperature of the product with the quantities of volume corrected in accordance with the DA PAM 7 with the 1022 with the compare with the quantity with the delivered with the shore with the tank with the quantity with the received in the vessel tank. Short gauges must be able to get the exact amount delivered note and the difference between the amount delivered and the amount received. The report with the difference with the proper authority close. Securely bolt with all the compartment and hatch of the desired amount with the product with the load of the certified with the specification. Make sure that all of the ullage and sounding hole that are covered securely with the seal hole of the air required with the regulation. Record all seal number. Department of Defense Form 250. Pump ball is water. Proper tank with the vessel with the knee with the valve with the proper trim with the voids of the tank must be clean with the floor of the ballast is received. The only clean ballast should be pumped into the tank. Make sure that all the line valves or clove with the disconnect with the cargo hose with the drain, any of the remaining of the product with the hose with the catch aim with the spill with the drip pan with the place with the beneath the hose with the drain with into the water onto the dock with the spill occurs. Wipe them up immediately. Cover the hose end with the blind flange of the gasket. Store the hose and then shelter the hose rack. Refueling bunkering facilities, refueling and bunkering tankers. Tankers may be refueled at the port terminal of the tank. Proceed with you the issue fuel with the load fuel in the tank of the bunker operation should be recorded with the DO Form 251. Samples must be taken to detect contamination. All safety precautions must be followed. After refueling with the disconnect with the refueling hose, open the ground switch, disconnect with the bonding cable from the ship in that order. Unloading procedures. There are a number of the procedures that must be followed with the properly unload a vessel with these procedures that described below. After the vessels are moored and all safety precautions are taken, the vessel must be grounded with the dock before the cargo hose is connected with the ground vessel to take them the following step. With the inspect with the grounding system to verify the continuity testing according with the applicable standard to make sure the grounding switch is open. Make sure for the grounding clamp of the ship is grounded when the clamp is attached with the bare metal surface with the hull of the vessel with the field may be necessary for the stand spot with the hull to make it a good connection. Check for the grounding system to see if there is no loose connection. Check for the grounding switch inspecting vessel. Or the master of the vessel ashore with the petroleum inspector must review the loading plan with the vessel with the grade with the amount of the product with the gear with also they must review the layout of the cargo with the order with which of the product should be unloaded with the before unloading operation begin with the shore petroleum. The inspector must check with the manifest of the department of Form 251 with the seal with the number of the valve. See with the inspector must verify each of the seal with the intact with the isolation valve with the C-suction valves. He must document the reason for the missing with the broken seal, for the ullage, for the temperature, for the water surrounding must be taken with each of the compartment by the ship personnel, by the witness, by the shore personnel. These ratings are recorded in the Department of EA Form 3853-3 with a grade with the difference for the compartment gauge for the after loading before the discharging must be checked properly. Vessel masters must explain with the difference for the written statement attached for the ullage report. Sampling testing product. If the product aboard of the vessel has been inspected with the procurement of the government and unloading operations, the may begin with the type sheet with the test of the all levels of sample of the product with each of the compartment show with no contamination multiple tank composite sample must then be sent to the laboratory for the type B1 test. If the product aboard of the vessel has not been inspected with the procurement of the government, the laboratory must run an A type on the sample of the upper, middle, lower portion of each of the tank on all levels of composite samples for each of the tank before discharge. If no testing facility that are readily available to any of the product on the question should be placed in this isolated storage room until the laboratory tests to confirm quality. Connecting cargo hose. The step of connecting the cargo hose to unload the vessel are the same with the shows the U with the connecting to the load vessel, see page 4 to 18 with the step of the connecting loading arm, the C with the connecting loading arm and unload the vessel, the same with those with the D with the connect with the loaded vessel, see page 4 19 for these steps. Heating cargoes. Cargo may need to be heated before it's unloaded. See the information on heating cargoes on page 420. Pumping product. The certain procedure that must be followed with the unloading product of the vessel. The shore of the procedure that is followed with the opening of the proper valve of the bore of the vessel. The product will flow with the correct tank with the dock manifold. Open the proper shore with the valve to permit the flow of the proper shore tank with the start with the pump. The operator of the element at a slow speed. Closely watch for the pumping pressure for the shown with the pressure gauge. Gauge is usually on the line near the dock manifold with the too much for the pressure build with the upscale with the mean with the valve with the clove within the line. But in the case for the shutdown with the pump that once you know start pumping again with the problem is correct with the sometimes the shore pump with the U with the boost for the product flow. When this happens with adjust for the discharge of the rate of the vessel rate of the shore pump with half of the pump, some of the start of the this is done to prevent the shore location, pump fuel starvation, the degree for the discharge time, watch all hose with the line connection for the leak. If the leaks appear with the stop of the pump immediately and fix the leaks before starting again. Line walker shall inspect the lines for at least every once or every hour. Gauge shore tanks for the during unloading operation only direct within the order of the JP5 of the JP8 shore tanks. should not be gauged during the unloading operation. Carefully watch for the chain, for the tie, for the slack of the pull, and the hove, of the sudden movement over the vessel that may be caused the damage to the hove and loss of product. In the case of the fire of the vessel, of the dock near the shoreline, with the tanker farm area, with the shop of the train for the operation, immediately close all valves. If the tanker farm is next to the port, disconnect with the cargo hove, the move of the vessel, with the safety distance of the shore. When an electrical storm is within 3-mile radius for the transfer operation, stop the transfer of the operation, close the valve of the vessel of the dock for the coordinate with the weather before with the transfer of the operation started. Maintain with the coordinated during the transfer operation if an electrical storm is possible. If there's no immediate head, the hose may be left connected. If there's immediate head, the hose should be disconnected with the drain with the main block valve with it should be closed. When all the product has been pumped, then one cargo tank with the open valve with the next tank with the carrying the same product with the closed valve with the empty tank. Be careful not to pump the water short. The pump should continue operating while tanks are being switched. Watch the draft of the vessel during the unloading of the operation to make sure the vessel maintained with the proper trim. When the short tank with the DLD capacity, the open valve of the leading with the next tank with the same product with the top off the list of the first tank with a slower rate with the close of the valve when the first tank is full. When the last of the sphere of the vessel cargo tank with the carrier with the same product with it almost empty and reduce the flow of the product. When all product has been pumped with the last tank, stop all pumps and close all lines. Performing follow-up procedures. Alright, certain follow-up procedures must be performed after the vessel is loaded. The procedures are on file with the patrolman, inspect the representative of the check. The G of the tank compartments are empty, but they fill with the dry tank of the certification of the DOD form 251 with the vessel ullage report with on both of the amount with any of the product cannot be pumped with the shore with the will be estimated with the end of the dry tanker certification. Representative of the U of the government does not final shore tank of the gauge and the sample is witnessed by an officer of the agent of the vessel with the other authorized representative. Or another authorized representative of the vessel method to decide not to wait until after the product sale with the gauge of the shore tank with in this case the estimated amount received based on the gauge is taken after unloading it before the end of the settling of the period with maybe the end of the due of the E form 251. Preliminary check should be made 30 minutes after the receipt after two success with the gauge of the error agreed you with the correct with the gauge. Fresh stock shall be produced shall allow the sale with the about 2 hours after the added with the shore tank with the after the product sale with the final L of the official gauges are taken the volume is correct according to the DA form pamphlet 71022. For these readings are used in accountability and are noted with the DOD form 250. Composite sample the mixture of the upper and middle of the lower sample is taken. Each of the short tank with the sample is tested in accordance with the military handbook 200 malice water with its pump. The eve of the proper tank with the vessel with the knee of the valve to maintain ring trim during the voyage. Tank must clean before the valve of the receiver. Only the clean water should be pumped and aboard. But all tank with an empty with the valve of the load with the all compartment with the hatch with the end or closed with the bolted down securely. All usually sounding holes should be securely covered. All line valves should be closed and the cargo hose while they may be disconnected with any of the remaining product with the drain with the hose of the spiller with the drip pan with the placement with the hose connection. The hose shall not be allowed with the drain with into the water onto the deck and spill curve with it must be wiped up and one for the hose end, but it must be covered in blind flange of the gasket of the hose of the store and the shelter of the hose rack with the cargo hose must be disconnected with the grounding switch or there must be open grounding cable disconnected from the ship. Chapter 5 Offshore Petroleum Discharge System.